Good evening. My name is Gregg Pasquarelli. I'm one of the partners at Shop Architects, and I'm very pleased and happy to be here tonight to try and explain some of the thinking that we went through in developing the Plaza design. I think the best way to talk about architecture is to look at drawings. So let's see if this works. Just to summarize what Marianne just had explained, here you see the arena. This is B2 site, B3, and B4, the three buildings that Forest City has just discussed proceeding in the coming months. And right here is the public plaza, Atlantic Avenue, Flatbush Avenue. The front door of the arena is right along this line. And as we showed last year when we were here, the design of the arena itself has this large canopy that becomes a kind of entry point to the arena and a kind of civic space for the city of Brooklyn. So these were some drawings that we talked about last year, which show some of the forms, the kinds of relationships and the views in and out of the arena. It was very important in the design that the arena had permeability, it had transparency, there's retail spaces, there's ways to see in and out, and that it wasn't something that was a big wall, if you will, cutting through the neighborhood. As I said before, the canopy was a critical part of the design. It became this front door, this gate, this entryway. And we wanted something that was dramatic and civic in its gesture and its scale, but at the same time we didn't want something that would cast a huge, large shadow on a part of the plaza. And so one of the ideas that we had was to put this oculus, or hole in the roof of the canopy, which would frame the views and be this kind of iconic element on the arena itself. So, you know, the oculus is a device used by architects for many, many thousands of years. There were ancient ones. A very, very famous one is the one in the Pantheon in Rome. They've been used in classical architecture, and they've been used in contemporary architecture. And the oculus that we are looking at is quite large in scale, and it sits at the front entry as you come into the plaza. And the inner ring has dynamic signage on it, and as you come up, and you'll see this in animations that we'll show you later, as you come through the transit exit, it really frames the building and the sky and becomes this iconic part of the design. So for the plaza itself, these were the kind of key things, key goals of the design, all of which we took to be very important. And at the same time, we had to negotiate through a very difficult site condition and try and figure out the best way to incorporate these goals with something that works with the arena and something that would be effective with the neighborhood. So again, some of the site conditions that were important, everything from subway grates to the location of the transit entry, canopy edge, the bus stops, and you can see there was also a DEP sewer easement that ran right through the center of the plaza. There was an area where the entry to the station has limited amounts of load that you could put on that surface, so there were certain limitations to what could be done there. We wanted to make sure that the standard wide 20-foot New York City sidewalk was continued all around the entire space. And at the same time, so those were some of the conditions. At the same time, we looked at the different kinds of circulation patterns of the pedestrians as they move through and across the plaza. So commuters coming from the surrounding neighborhoods and going to the transit entry, fans, people coming to the arena itself, and then just local traffic sort of cutting between neighborhoods and across the site. And when you add the three together, it just brought a very clear picture to us, which was that you have one kind of pedestrian activity here where people are going in every different direction, not so dissimilar from the main room at Grand Central Station. And then on what we call the tip portion, you have more linear kinds of pathways. And so we saw that as a way to kind of think of the plaza in two separate parts. The total size of the plaza is almost 39,000 square feet. And the idea was that the three quarters in the front needed to be more of an open plaza, and that the place that we could put more landscape, more seating, and incorporate that into the transit entrance would be in the front quarter of the plaza itself. Now, 39,000 square feet, it's a kind of hard thing to understand what that means. So we try to show you it relative to some other plazas and open spaces around Brooklyn and New York. So these are all to the same exact scale, but here's the Barclays Center Plaza, the Brooklyn Museum Plaza, that's Union Square, this is the Grand Army Plaza, and this is Lincoln Center Plaza. So you see, it's quite a significant space. It's something that's very civic and that we're very excited about the public being engaged with. As far as precedents, Sharp does a lot of public space design around the world. We spend a lot of time traveling and looking at these things and studying them, and we looked at literally hundreds of different precedents around the world, from spaces in front of arenas, spaces in front of civic buildings, spaces in front of museums, landscape spaces, esplanades, a lot of different ideas. And one of the key things as a designer when you go out and look at things is not only to look at the things that work really well, but often to look at the things that don't work very well, and try and figure out what those things mean and how they can be adapted to the very local condition, which is often very different from what you're looking at when you design a plaza. So the current design. One of the key things about the design of the arena that we talked about last year was this kind of wonderful thing that the court is something below ground, and that one of the ideas that was really kind of keeping this permeability or transparency into the arena was the ability that from the public space, one can see into the bowl itself and see the scoreboard floating there. And that was something that we don't know of in any other arena, but something that we think was really fantastic. And as well, this idea of the oculus being this space that you can look up through as you're moving around on the plaza space itself. So just to get a sense of the scale, the canopy goes out between 80 and 90 feet. Here is the oculus above. There's about another 75 feet from the edge to the transit area. And then the transit and seating zone is about another 120 feet, and then it goes out to the tip. And then what you can see is the first ideas of the design were to think about incorporating these things into a single sculptural element, something that we've worked on and went through multiple versions of, and to bring some green into the space as well. And so the idea was to plant that roof and planters around the edges. This is the more wide open space, and here you can see the oculus above. So you can see the sidewalks coming on both sides, the planted area, and then the large open plaza space there. Now, as far as the paving, we wanted to use a very durable material. We looked at materials and plazas around the world, different kinds of patternings, different ways of directing people, and what we thought were effective ways and materials. And so it's a precast concrete paver, and the idea was to look at the different kind of traffic areas and almost map those with different paving systems. So in the area where you have very high traffic, we have a very tight pattern, and then you have some areas with medium traffic on the sidewalks, and then you have some zones where we think there'll be less traffic and it has a different pattern from there. So again, on the area with the high traffic, it's a tighter, smaller piece, plank for the plaza, and it's very directional, leading into the space itself. And then as you get out to the sides, it transitions smoothly into a more random pattern of concrete paver.